Hello and welcome to another FPL podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. With just 3 days remaining now until we get the season started, we are back with our final Rate My Team, and I've saved the best till last. I'm joined by Neale today. How you doing?
Good, Andy. Yeah, very busy, as you'd expect, because since FPL site relaunch, we've been really sort of ramping up the content. We're heading back towards 3 or 4 articles a day on the site now. So it's come at the cost of my own team, I think, in terms of planning. And I'll be on the site at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, still redrafting my unlimited transfers squad. I'm a kind of last minute manager anyway, so there's no change there. But yeah, still plenty of thinking to do, even though I've got what I hope is the spine of a good team for the restart, I hope.
Yeah, we'll definitely look at that in just a sec. I think planning and kind of work and content creation at the moment is crazy. Just one quick thing actually. Do you ever find that as you're writing articles, you almost talk yourself into a player that you hadn't really considered before? Do you ever find that?
Definitely, yeah. I think I've since I took this job on 2 years ago, I've convinced myself that I've got less time to think about my own team in evenings, because sometimes the last thing you want to do at the end of a day is then log on to FPL again and then look at your own team. But really, subconsciously, you're absorbing information for 8 hours a day, probably dissuading yourself from some players, convincing yourself on others. Just yesterday or the day before, Andre Duda, someone I've never even considered, for example. I was looking at his stats. He's a set play taker. He's playing in the number 10 for Norwich. Has started every game since he joined. So not that I'm suggesting everyone signs him, but players like that who ordinarily have not even considered, just through dredging through the numbers in the members area, names just crop up and it can. It's a constantly shifting world, really, writing FPL content, because you from day to day you're stumbling on names that you might have overlooked or thinking, this guy's actually not as good as I thought. So yeah, there's I don't know if that's a help or a hindrance.
Yeah, I
You can
suppose it
overthink
depends.
things at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. We'll get on with your team now and see if kind of that's happened when we get on to kind of the team you're going to go on with to Gameweek 30. But I'll bring up your current team first. So you just want to quickly run us through it. What chips do you have left? Are there any players that you'd almost be happy to keep going forward, and any that you think are kind of, that must be gotten rid of?
Yeah, a bit of everything, really. I think chips-wise, I've got everything bar the triple captain chip, which I used in Game Week 24. A lot of people did that as well. And of course, we got, I guess, an extra chip in the form of unlimited transfers, which will shape the chip strategy as we'll discuss. But in terms of my current side, it's largely as I left it in Game Week 29. I did make 3 transfers during the lockdown period. So De Bruyne, Pope, and Lascelles came in. I got rid of Mane, Guaita, and Brandon Williams. Pope for Guaita is an obvious one, I think, because Palace's fixtures are pretty bad. I know Burnley have got Man City first off, but over the run-in as a chunk of fixtures, they're actually a lot better. De Bruyne in for Mane, because I had a double up of Liverpool's attack, and it looked like, this was my Game Week 38 transfer, at that point it looked like we were heading perhaps towards the fixtures falling in the same order. So I'd seen that Man City had Burnley up first. I didn't know they were going to have a double. So I got him in, and the other one, Lascelles for Williams, pretty boring transfer, but Lascelles, I'm pretty sure he's going to get minutes, whereas Williams, who's a good prospect and will play, I'm sure, during the remaining 9 game weeks. It's just you're never quite sure from game week to game week when he's actually going to start. So I used that opportunity to bring in a player who I knew, hopefully, is nailed in the form of Lascelles. He's our club captain, and he's got some decent fixtures to start off with. So yeah, those are my 3 changes. Elsewhere, as I said, left it as was. So I kept Aubameyang, knowing that Arsenal had a double to come. I didn't know when it was going to be, but this was one of the reasons I didn't slow wildcard fully, because I didn't know what I was slow wildcarding towards. I wasn't sure when the doubles were. I wasn't sure when the FA Cup games would be played, or whether there'd be more blanks and doubles to come. Didn't know about neutral venues. Didn't know if the season was going to be curtailed altogether. So I like to have as much information as I can before I dismantle my team, which is why I didn't do as many changes as others did. So yeah, Aubameyang's still in there. I'm still might get rid of him for the double. I'm leaning towards keeping him, but my team value is not great. So it could come down to a straight choice between him or Aguero. Otherwise, I might be ditching Salah, which I've done in one of my drafts. But yeah, elsewhere, I'm happy with Egan, happy with Alexander-Arnold for now. The obvious places I need to upgrade, Button, if I'm bench boosting, you need a playing keeper. Saka, strange enough, who has got a double, but I'm not convinced he's going to get 90 minutes every week. I know a lot of players won't anyway, but Tierney and Kolasinac are back for Arsenal. Yes, he's been playing in different positions. I've seen in Arsenal's friendlies. I think he played in attacking midfield in the Brentford game, which is interesting. But I'm still not convinced he'll be a regular with the abundance and choice Arteta's got. And yeah, I guess it depends what strategy I'm going for in Game Week 30, which I'll discuss in a second. The Leicester lads, for example, could feasibly go. Abdoulaye Decoria had in because I was dead-ending my team for what was blank Game Week 31. So Watford would have had a fixture then. So I'd got him in anticipation of that. That hasn't materialised, so arguably he's dispensable or can upgrade him for Sarr. But yeah, in a sort of decent of shape, I would say
If there was
double.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I just looking there, so there's only four double game week players. So
yeah.
I'm assuming, obviously, we got unlimited transfers. So are you looking to make use of that and then bench boosting, or looking to free hit instead?
I think unlimited transfers. I know it differs from manager to manager. I think if you had still wild carded over the break, and your team was looking good, or if you haven't got wild card left, then I can understand why people are free hitting in Game Week 30, and that is still an option for me. I'm not ruling it out completely, but I kind of feel like I'm wasting this additional chip if I don't.
I get what you mean. I feel like I'm a slightly different situation because I don't have the wild card, but yeah, I get what you mean. If you've got the wild card, it kind of absolutely makes sense to use unlimited transfers. I actually bring your team up, so we should. So this is a bench boost team that you got on screen. Yeah. So I did a video with David actually a couple of days ago, and one thing I noticed, like he had. Obviously, like you said, basically having like players like Aubameyang, Aguero, and De Bruyne, it does kind of hurt your team value. And one thing you've done, which he's done as well, which I'm assuming is for the same reason, is you've still got Trent Alexander-Arnold in there. Is that simply because you just think he's a great option this week, or because of team value concerns? So obviously, if you sell him and try and buy him back, it costs you a bit more.
Yeah, I suppose a little bit of both in a sense. I've had him since Game Week 1 and I've not sold him, so part of it, I wonder, is some kind of romantic or overly sentimental attachment you get to players that you've had from the start. Of course, a lot of that is team value. I've got 0.4 tied up in him because I bought him at 7. So, it's a bit of everything. He's still a hell of an asset, really, in terms of creativity and assists and all that kind of stuff, even for 7.8 million. I know it's a lot of money for a defender, but he really knocks all the other sub 8 million assets in whatever position into the dirt, really, given his figures. So I'm still tempted to keep him. I know he eats up a large chunk of that budget, but Liverpool's got Palace in 31 at home, and I do think until they've got the title in the bag, that they will go full strength. After that point, then I will reassess. I think he's possibly on for the chopping pod beyond that point. He will start the bulk of the games, I'm sure, even when Liverpool have won the title. But I think we'll see perhaps more of the fringe players getting run-outs. I know it's not the same position, but Lallana, for example, is leaving at the end of the season, so you could expect some farewell appearances from him. Obviously, I know that's not Alexander-Arnold's rule, but the likes of Milner, who's been a substitute for much of the season, who Klopp absolutely loves, would he get a few run-outs as well? He can deputise at fullback. So I think I probably will keep him until Liverpool's won the league, and then reassess after that. I guess in terms of double game week assets, what have I got there? Is it 9 in total?
Yeah, one thing that stands out to me, which I was going to ask you about, is you've only got 2 Man City players. Is that simply because you just can't afford anymore, or you're just not too sure about who the third one should be?
I think, again, much like a match of the day pundit, it's probably a bit of both. I think it's my team values, obviously like yours, Andy, was damaged in the hack. And I'm not helping myself by making late transfers throughout the rest of the season. that's just kind of my approach to fantasy management. I tend to wait until the press conferences have happened, to the detriment of my team value. But yeah, a lot of it is I'm not quite sure what Pep's going to do. I know that's the case for much of the season anyway. I'll remain open to the idea of putting a third in. I'll see what he says in his press conference if he does have one. He'll be one of the handful that we do get before next Wednesday's deadline, and then take it from there. Still not convinced Aguero is going to stay in, because that would mean losing Salah or Mane. I would say De Bruyne is absolutely nailed. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But yeah, I've gone. When I was doing this last night, because this is kind of a first draft, but it will form the core of my unlimited transfer side. I was kind of half looking to do a bit of a hybrid team, so a one that could play in game week 30. I could bench boost if I want. It's got double game week representation, but then one I could possibly play in game week 31 and then maybe 32 without having a wild card. I'm not sure that's possible. I've had a look again. I've tried to do the best I can, but you'll see a huge gaping hole in the lack of Man United assets for a start. Really want a double up at least on them. Son, I really want as well, probably from game week 31. Liverpool's got Palace at home, as I said. So would you want a Salah or Mane for that? So I'm not sure that it's possible for me, with my poor team value, to set up a team with unlimited transfers of game week 30 and then use that same one for game week 31, particularly as the likes of City, Sheffield United especially, haven't got great fixtures beyond this game week. Aston Villa's got Newcastle, which isn't too bad, and then Arsenal's got some decent ones as well. So you could still retain Aubameyang and Grealish, for example. But yeah, am I going to want to play 3 Sheffield United defenders for the rest of the season? Probably not. Maybe not even one. Henderson, of course, is then eligible to play in game week 31 anyway. And a lot of these single game week players that you'll see on the screen were kind of short-term picks. Like Pulisic is a big gamble. Not even sure he's going to start, and he might come out. But Chelsea's playing Villa, and Villa are just a shocking defensive team. Hence why I've got no one like Target in my side. So I might go for a Chelsea midfielder in game week 30, for example, and then not want them in game week 31 because they then got City. So I'm having looked at it last night. I don't think it's possible for me to do a coverall team for the first 3 game weeks. I think I might have to swallow it and use a chip straight away, despite unlimited transfers in game week 30 and wildcard in game week 31. I did see a pretty good alternative strategy from Ben Krellin on Twitter, who proposed the idea of free hitting in 31. So you could free hit, for example, 3 Liverpool players into your team for 31 for what could be the title winning game, and then not have them left over in game week 32, which is when they play City. So that is an interesting alternative, actually. That's something I hadn't even considered.
You also get an extra week's worth of data as well. You get an extra week's worth of lineups, because I mean we can make a lot of assumptions after one game week, but there's no way to say that's what all the managers do. So yeah, I quite like that idea. Yeah,
that's one of the problems of wildcard in game week 31 is that firstly the deadline is at next Tuesday. Oh, sorry, a week on Tuesday. So again, I don't know how many press conferences you'll hear from. As you said, there, one game week's worth of data. So yeah, it's a bit of a snap judgment to be making on players you'll want for the rest of the season, really. So that is one of the many downsides, I guess, to my strategy. There's pluses and weaknesses about every chip strategy that you'll hear. So yeah, there is a perfect one.
It really does depend on the team. Like I think for some teams, not very many probably, and there are lots and lots of good reasons to play the bench boost this week. Is another option is to free hit this week and then wildcard later, just to get all the double gaming players in. But the problem with your team is, like you said, you want those Man United players, and you don't have them in your current team anyway. So it's just too many changes. I think making a balanced team is very tricky. Like if you've got no chips, then you have to just deal with it. But otherwise it's very tricky. Like looking at your team, so one player that you don't have, which I've actually barely talked about up until recently when he scored 2 goals in a friendly. Now I know we shouldn't read so much into pre-season, but John Lundstrom is not here. Now, what's it
Yeah.
going to take for you to put Lundstrom in your team? Would you need to see a leak beforehand, or would you take a risk if he plays another game, scores another goal? Is it someone you're considering, or is
Yeah,
it
I
just
think
too
it
risky?
would take. Yeah, it is a risk at this stage of the year when a lot of your players are like the big hitters are going to be risks to an extent. You still want like a core of assets who you can trust to play 90 minutes. And John Egan, for example, you can pretty much be assured that he is going to start both games. He's not even going to get substituted because he's the rock in the middle of the three central defenders. He's not going to be taken off, I don't think, not based on past evidence. So you can be pretty assured that he's going to play 180 minutes. He's got a goal threat of his own, admittedly not one from an open play. But I don't know if you saw Late Riser's stat he put up last night on Twitter, where he said Villa and Newcastle, who are Sheffield United's two opponents in the double game week, are the two worst teams for, I think it's attempts from set players conceded this season. So that's straight into the hands of the likes of Egan and O'Connell, who are good in the air. Of course, Lundstrom offers you more of a sustained goal threat, and I had him for the first 25 game weeks of the season or something like that. Still probably my player of the year, even though I've sold him now. But yeah, I think that rotation risk with Sander, I apologise for the pronunciation if this is wrong, Sander Berger, is it just weighs too heavy in my mind. Now, if he comes down with an injury, this positional rival, and then I see Lundstrom's bagged a hat trick or something in the next pre-season friendly, then I'm back in the game. But at the moment, I think I'd rather go with Egan and someone like Stevens, who might get substituted during the game, given that they're going up to 5 subs per match now. But someone like him, I think, is a more secure starter because they're not particularly blessed with alternatives. I know they've got, I think, Osborne who can play there, but he's not the same player. Stevens obviously is so much going forward as well, like assist potential. I think most
Yeah,
or
he's my
joined most
favourite.
big chances created this season in the Sheffield United squad. So at the moment, it's Stevens and Egan, but I remain open to any possibility.
Yeah, you got
Over
the
next week.
triple up there. So I actually put a tweet out the other day asking for people just to send me their drafts just to kind of see who's being picked by teams. So obviously we can see ownership on the site, but realistically the ownership of players during the double with loads of free hits and stuff is going to be much higher. And I looked at 30 drafts because I couldn't look at all of them. There was too many. So it's a small sample size, but 43% had at least 2 Sheffield United defenders and 43% also had 3 or more. So 86% of all the teams that were out of I looked, again, 30 teams, small sample size, but you can imagine if I checked another 30, I'm sure it would be very similar.
Yeah.
So 86% had at least 2 Sheffield United defenders. So I think you have to almost back them because of that. Most active managers are going to have them, and I think, like you say, I think you've probably got the 3 I would pick if I was bench boosting for sure, because I think Leno and Henderson make sense as the 2 goalkeepers. But yeah, if Lundstrom's just a bit risky for me, but if I see him score again, it's going to be difficult not to just put him in because we know how he can be explosive versus the rest probably. Just quickly looking, go on.
Sorry, and he's actually the most transferred in defender this week. I was
It
just
makes
reading
sense.
there on the site. Yeah, I think 4 of the top 6 are Sheffield United defenders, which sort of backs up what you're saying there. I think they are going to be hugely popular.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a slight risk that obviously they've had a break. Will they be the same team that comes back? Will Henderson be able to keep bailing them out? Obviously, they've still got this Man United thing. Like, will they give him an extension? Which I don't think's happened yet, at least not at the time of recording. I just think you have to back what you know, and they've been so good this year. And they got probably the 2, outside of, you're not going to triple up on Man City defenders because you need their attackers. Fixture-wise, it's about as good as it gets as well. So I think you have to back them. Just quickly then, before we end this one, you've got quite a few single game week players. I think. Do you feel like you have to do that because of the bench boost, or do you just not trust enough of the double game week players? Because you've got McGinn and Grealish. You could have a second Arsenal player, someone like an Ozil instead of Pulisic. But what like as well as that, what do you think of Pulisic? Because I know you've written a good article on him. You think could be a decent option?
Yeah, he's a big risk. Of course, he is, and the wealth of options that Lampard's got in the wide areas, especially, is off-putting. I think at the end of that article, I'd written that people should probably keep an eye on the off-the-field issues just to properly assess Pulisic. Because if, for example, Willian and Mount don't sign the short-term extensions, Then Pulisic has got a bit of a free run down like predominantly plays off the left. And Hudson-Odoi, of course, is caught up in some sort of legal issue at the moment, isn't he? I think he's got he bailed for a court appearance in mid-June. So you're not quite sure what the pitch is going to be at Chelsea. They've got a bit of a bloated squad. But he himself, I know he was frustrating over sort of heading towards Christmas. And I know he wasted chances and lost his place. But he had, I think this season, he trailed only Salah for shots in the box per 90 minutes. I think it's something like that. Anyway, if you look at his shot map, which I put in that members article, there's so many in the 6-yard box or around there. He's not someone who just sort of sticks to the touchline. He drifts inside. And Chelsea's wingers tend to be inverted forwards anyway, inside forwards. He gets into the box with far more regularity than the likes of Mount, Willian, Pedro when he plays. He's a bit of a sort of like a back post lurker. Good in the air as well. He's surprisingly good in the air. 10 of his 40 shots this season have been headers, including a couple of his goals. So he's someone who, there's a definite fantasy player there waiting to burst out. He's just not quite consistent enough in terms of fantasy returns. He looked very good over, like, if you just discount FPL, just look at a player's performance. He looked really good in the autumn, in both Premier League and in Europe. And I just think it was a bit of bad luck, bit of naivety, a bit of poor finishing that he didn't follow up those initial returns with something else. He still scored 5 goals in 8 games in that chunk of period. People will concentrate on the 5 blanks, but 5 goals in 8 games for a sub 7 million midfielder is excellent. So it's a tough ask for him to reproduce that, and it's a tough ask for him to be playing, starting every game. But I'll be keeping an eye on the Chelsea midfielder situation, especially Willian and Pedro and Hudson-Odoi, to see how that unfolds before Wednesday's deadline, and then decide based on that. But good fixtures coming up. Villa starting up with, who, as we know, are
awful,
pretty atrocious. At the back. And then, of course, they got Man City after that, but then they got West Ham, Watford, Palace, Sheffield United, Norwich, which is a decent run. So yeah, he's someone towards the top of my watch list. I might not get him in Gameweek 30. I might wait to see what happens in the first 2 game weeks back, and then move from after the City game. But one to watch, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's just such a good fixture. If you only need a player for 1 week, he could be good. Yeah. I actually stuck him in a differential video yesterday, and it's kind of, I read the article too, and I looked at it. So he's only played, I think it's only 12 games where he's actually played 60 minutes or more. And he's got 8 returns for the season, so 5 goals, 3 assists. They did get those 5 goals over 4 games, but still, he's shown he can do it. I just think it's just been a bit of a weird season, like a few injuries here or there, then losing his place, and maybe this break will give him a chance to come back on fire. So I quite like that. I think as single game week differential punts go for 1 week, I think Chelsea and Wolves are definitely where I'll be looking. Just got a last question, because I feel like as more people get closer to the deadline, they are going to put more single game week players in. I think you've got 9 double game weekers. I think that's probably about optimum before you start kind of... There's other players you go for, Pepe, Sterling, etc., but they're a lot of money, and you kind of... They're almost a punt, I suppose, as well as single game weekers. Just one thing, though, Lascelles, 4.3 million. Do you think he's better single game week than... I know Matt Target, you've already mentioned, someone like him. He gets at least 2 chances to get some points. Would you be tempted to make that switch, or is it just he's just not good enough for you?
He does carry attacking threat. I acknowledge that, and he's been on corners as well for Villa, which is something, given that they've got Samata, who's very good in the air. But every season we say the same thing, don't we? We get blinded by the double game weekers. And every year I tell myself, I'm not going to make the same mistake next season. And I do. So I'm still might fold. It's sometimes peer pressure, isn't it? If you look at the RMTs on the site and you see 12 game weeks, I think, oh, I'm going to be missing out here. But it's what you said there. I think the core I've got there, the 9 double game weekers, they're players, with maybe the exception of McGinn, who you'd be happy with, and you'd expect some kind of return from. Aubameyang, Grealish, the 3 Sheffield United defenders, De Bruyne and Aguero. You'd expect something from them. after that, I think you are purely picking based on the fact they've got 2 fixtures, and it is that 2 bites of the cherry mentality. But when else would I have considered Target this season? I've not considered him once, despite the occasional assists, despite the good fixtures that they've had. I've never considered bringing him in. I started the season with Tom Heaton in goal in game week 1, and I swiftly remedied that situation because I could see how bad they were. So I don't think I'm going anywhere near Villa defenders. Yeah, there's the likes of Pepe and Stern as well, but as I've repeatedly stressed, my team value is not so good, and I really would be making sacrifices elsewhere to squeeze those in. So it's about prioritising which heavy hitters are the best, and I think many people would agree that Aguero, Aubameyang, and De Bruyne would be the 3, and then building a side around them without overlooking the single gamers, because there are some really good fixtures to start off in the single. Like Wolves are playing Bournemouth. Sorry, they're playing is it West Ham?
Yeah,
West Ham, and then Bournemouth and Villa. So I'm not going to overlook their fixture purely because they're not playing twice. Arsenal, for example, one of their double game week fixtures is away at City. So is an off chance of a return v City plus a Brighton game necessarily that much better than Wolves playing away at West Ham? I don't necessarily think it is, because less than 72 hours separate Arsenal's fixtures anyway. So we might see some rotation. So I think with Jimenez, for example, you can pretty much be sure that he is going to start. He's one of the regulars under Santo. Very rarely gets benched, and I've learned from years and years of placing too much emphasis on double gaming is that it's not the be all and end all. Duffy double captaincy last year was the prime example. So
it's a low point in many of our careers, that FPL careers.
I like how he's still taking flack for that on Twitter from disgruntled managers, but a year on. So yeah, I if I'm strong enough in character to resist the urge of a Mings or a David Luiz or someone like that, then I'll probably stick with 8 or 9 double game makers and fill the rest with singlers.
Yeah, no, I think given your position, your chips you got left, and I know your team value is similar to mine, it's quite low. I gave David a D- for his team. I'll give you a B-. I'll get you up to the B. Don't think it'd be right if I gave someone an A. I don't think any of us can pick the perfect team, but I think you got the right single game weekers. Maybe Lascelles or Target. I don't know. I like Newcastle defense though, to be honest, for the opening 4. Otherwise, looks really good. Anything else you want to kind of add before we shut the video off?
Nope. Just this usual proviso that this team could see a few changes before Wednesday. But if anyone's remotely interested, I'll put up the final draft on social media on Wednesday afternoon. But I suspect that might be 5 to 5.
Yeah, just before the deadline. All right, cool. Well, we'll leave it there then. If you've enjoyed that, rate my team. Make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new around here as well. I'll say thanks for joining me, Neale.
No bother, Andy. Thanks for having me.
And we'll catch you all again soon. Cheers.